What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Locked In Sports Podcast. I'm William Locke, and joining me for our Week 9 college football preview is, of course, Mr. Joe Sieben. Joe, how you doing?
Dude, week 9, that sounds crazy. We're almost at double digits here. It's flying by.
It's been it always goes by fast, unfortunately. So we got to enjoy. I really like the last month of the regular season. Of course, the postseason is going to look a lot different this year, so we'll have more ball to look forward to then. But this is another loaded week. There's not necessarily the titanic clash of like a Georgia and a Texas or an Alabama, Tennessee, or one of those huge matchups. But I mean, it might not have that same aura about it, as the kids say, but LSU A&M is pretty damn big game. So I'm excited for that one. We got a couple big SEC clashes, a huge G5 versus, top 10 team opportunity here this weekend that we've kind of had circled for a while that we'll preview. Some games in the Big Ten, quieter week in the Big Ten, but there could be some upsets looming this weekend. Top 5 team goes on a tough road trip this weekend in the Big Ten. We'll have our locks, we'll have our upsets, and that's kind of what we have planned. Really excited to get going in this one.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun week. There's not your perfect, top 10 clash. You're gonna Oregon, Ohio State in this one, but there's a lot of quality games this weekend.
A lot of quality games, as always. There's been some coaching moves. I think maybe we can highlight those at the top before we dive into the Week 9 preview. Nothing, titanic, but ECU, they moved on from Mike Houston. They fired him on Monday. Southern Miss, they got rid of Will Hall. Both of those teams have been struggling at the G5 level this season. ECU kind of had higher expectations for their team this year. The defense has just been really poor. They just got blown out by Navy, or was it Army? No, it was Navy. No, it was Army last weekend. And then, Southern Miss, they're like 1-7. In the Power 5 level, Oklahoma and Utah are both moving on from their offensive coordinators. Oklahoma fired Seth Luttrell, and then Utah, their OC Andy Ludwig stepped down. So, any thoughts on those moves?
Wasn't Seth Luttrell a big name, like as a head coaching candidate before?
Yeah. I mean, he was filling the shoes of Jeff Lebby, of course, who went to Mississippi State. He was the head coach at North Texas up until 2022. They had a couple good seasons, and then he kind of moved over to Oklahoma. But I don't know if he was necessarily a huge name on the head coaching search, but I do remember his name coming up in the past. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these, it's not a huge shock. I think there were some high expectations. Certainly, look like a program like Oklahoma and the SEC expecting to be better. So it's hard. We'll see. It's either going to, these teams either get worse after it, or there's a spark with a new coordinator who figures some things out.
Yeah.
But if you're
That
pulling a guy from the same staff, sometimes it's like, is he running the same type of deal?
Right. And I mean, Oklahoma needs, I think, a lot more than a new OC to get
Yeah.
that thing rolling. And Utah, I mean, they've really been struggling. Ludwig stepped down, so I don't know why maybe they had something arranged where he still got his severance package, but ideally you get that money. Utah's been terrible offensively. Maybe they got a get right game this weekend against Houston. We'll see. But yeah, some moves, and we really hadn't seen any coaching moves up until this point in the season, later than normal. So I think it's something to keep an eye on now that the seal has officially been broken on coaches getting kicked out of their roles. Maybe we see some more after this weekend as well.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see a lot. I mean, you look the bigger names too with the buyouts. That some of those are going to be focused on that down the road.
Yeah, it is. We talked about it a little bit on Sunday, like some of these buyouts. It is buyout season. You're hovering those numbers and checking them out. So we'll see. Okay, let's dive into the Week 9 slate. We talked about the headliner. It's LSU. It's Texas A&M. It's in Kyle Field. A&M is favored by 2.5 at home in this game. The total sits at 53.5. You can watch this one 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on ABC Saturday night. There's a lot of storylines coming into this game. The biggest one is that it's a showdown of the top 2 teams in the SEC right now. Both teams are undefeated in conference. A&M is 4-0. LSU is 3-0. A&M's coming off a win over Mississippi State where they didn't necessarily look great, but they got the job done. Obviously, the week before that, they dispatched Missouri 41-10. So, they've been having a good season so far this year. Their only loss was in week 1 to Notre Dame. And then LSU, on the other hand, we've been talking about them a lot lately. They've really turned things around since that USC loss in week 1. And they beat Ole Miss a couple weeks ago. They went on the road against Arkansas last weekend in a close spread and just took care of business and really beat up on the Hogs. So what are you looking for in this game? Where you lean in? I have a feeling I know where you're leaning. I mean, we tend to ride with the Tigers, but how are you feeling about this game?
I'm looking for the front runner in the SEC. I mean, you break it down by the conference record. Winner of this one is in the driver's seat, which is pretty crazy. It doesn't quite feel like that. You always look for like the Georgia Bama game to be that, but that's the nature of what this one is. LSU, since that USC game, has played in close ball games, but they find a way to win. They find a way to get it done. A&M with the two quarterbacks has looked good. It's going to be Wegman here. I think I'm going to watch the line of scrimmage because LSU has gotten Durham going in the backfield. He's looking a lot better back there. They have a great offensive line there, especially with Will Campbell. But that A&M that A&M D line is great. Nick Scourton, I think, is the big guy there, the transfer from Purdue. So looking at those guys, and I want to say that Nessmeyer has definitely played better than Weigman this season. It's more, I guess, vetted to date at this point. But Weigman had a lot of hype coming in. I was high on him. Can he make a big play? Can he find his wideouts? He hasn't looked very consistent, in the past couple of weeks here. So it's at A&M, which I think is just huge. It's a night game. Kyle Field's going to be rocking, tough environment. I'm surprise, going to take the Tigers here, but it's going to be fun. Can they slow down Nussmeier? Can they make not even LSU play from behind because they've showed they can do that, but can they get him out of a rhythm somehow?
That's the key matchup to look for in this game. It's A&M secondary against that electric passing attack for LSU. That's been LSU's MO the whole season. You mentioned Durham, the running back. They were able to get him going last weekend. He had over 100 yards with 3 touchdowns on the ground. But LSU is a pass-first team. They've been a pass-first team under Brian Kelly. They throw it 59% of the time, which is 11th most in the FBS. And they average over 300 yards through the air per game, which is actually 7th in the country. So they look to throw. And A&M, if you mentioned the front, that is absolutely the strength of their defense. Nick Scourton, NFL prospect, probably going to be a first-round pick, but you can get at them in their secondary. They're 68th in passing, 227 yards allowed through the air per game this year. They haven't necessarily faced. I wouldn't say they haven't faced an elite quarterback either with those numbers. Notre Dame and Riley Leonard, not an elite passer. Florida, they beat Florida, but Florida can't throw the football that well. Certainly earlier in the season. Arkansas, Missouri. I mean, Missouri is terrible in that game. Brady Cook hasn't looked great this year. The best quarterback they faced this season is probably like Brady Cook. So, this is going to be a completely different passing attack, and their numbers aren't great against the pass already. I think that's a huge advantage in LSU's favor. They have a lot of different wide receivers that they can get the football. And you mentioned Wegman, he's been poor. He's been hurt, but 3 touchdowns, 4 picks this year. Two of those 3 touchdowns came against McNeese, and he threw 2 interceptions last weekend. He's been struggling. He looked good against Missouri. He didn't have any touchdowns or picks in that game, but outside of that, hasn't been great. You can get at this LSU secondary. They're 105th in passing defense, but I think it's getting better. Only allowed just under 300 to dart and 240 last weekend against Arkansas when they were basically had to pass the whole game. And it kind of feels like that defense as a whole is turning a corner, certainly compared to last season. They're 29th in points per game allowed, 24th in rush defense. The pass defense hasn't been great, but I think a lot of those numbers are skewed toward that USC game earlier in the season. And they got a stud, they lost Harold Perkins, but they got a stud sophomore linebacker, Whit Weeks, 9 tackles and a sack last weekend against Arkansas. So this line kind of surprises me. I mean, it's probably close to a pick 'em, maybe LSU favored on a neutral site, but I feel like they're the better team. It's a tough spot just with the past few weeks and who LSU's played, home versus Ole Miss. Then they went on the road against Arkansas, and now they're back on the road again in a tough spot to play. And then they got a bye week, and then they got Alabama. but I think I'm going to go with the better team, and I'm going to pick the Tigers here on the road. They get a win. I think it's going to be close because A&M they have the front to stay in it. Can Wegman, have a coming out party? If he does, I like A&M, but I'm going with the Tigers here.
Yeah, I'm gonna take him too here. I like him in this game. I like Nussmeier to keep it rolling until somebody stops this offense enough to beat them. I think just keep rolling with them. Their defense is getting better. They're gonna give up touchdowns. They're gonna give up points, but their offense is so potent. So why not?
And I think the reason that this game is maybe falling under the radar, it's the classic people judge a team and kind of write a team off after week one. Both of these teams lost in week one, and we're
Yep.
like, unless you lost to USC, they might not be that good this year. A&M, they lost at home, didn't look great against Notre Dame. Like, they're probably not going to do much this year. Neither of these teams have lost since then. They're leading the SEC, as we mentioned. I think the winner of this game firmly establishes himself in obviously the SEC race, but also like they're gonna get more talk nationally in terms of the CFP and
Mhm.
potentially competing for a national title. Because whoever wins this game, that's a outstanding win. Because I think both of
Yep.
these teams are pretty solid.
Yeah, it'll push them up there right at the top of the SEC.
Elsewhere in the SEC, I'm a little surprised by this spread. I'm going to be honest. Missouri, they're traveling to Alabama. Alabama is favored by just under 2 touchdowns. You can get it at 13 and a half. I've seen it at 14 some places. Total sits at 55 and a half. This one's 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, also on ABC. This is my question is, what has Alabama done to deserve this 2 touchdown spread? Now I know Missouri hasn't looked great, but neither has Alabama. This is a matchup with two teams that are absolutely desperate for a win here. Missouri sits at 2-1 in the SEC. Alabama already has 2 conference losses. They sit at 2-2. What are you looking for in this game? And do you think this line makes sense?
It's the only explanation would be that Mizzou's biggest game of the season was Texas A&M, where they just got clobbered at College Station. But Bama hasn't looked great. They haven't looked great on offense the past couple of weeks, and so this Mizzou defense is not like the best in the country, but it's solid. Like it's solid. It's no slouch. Their bend don't break. Trying to hold you to field goals when you get down in that red zone. So I'm really surprised by the 13 and a half. I'm definitely taking Mizzou on the spread. I think they can keep this one close and be in this ball game. I think they're better. They've learned from that game against A&M. They probably just weren't ready for that one. So I think Drink's gonna have them ready to roll. Brady Cook gutted out that game last week, so hopefully he's fully healthy. He was able to come back from the hospital mid-game and get that win, and maybe that sparked something for him. And you got to look at it, when we talk about like Arizona and Fafita McMillan, that's how I feel about Brady Cook and Luther Burden. If they're on, I feel like they could beat anybody in the country. They got shut down at A&M, but if they can get going in this one, they've also got Theo Weiss and some solid skill weapon guys. I love them to cover. I can't quite decide if I'm going to take them to win. Bama's just so good at home. That's a tough place to play.
Mhm.
Afternoon game. Sun will set there in the second half. And I still feel like there's that Bama factor that 3 losses already. It'd be pretty crazy.
I mean, if they lose this game, the pitchforks are going to be out, and there might very well be riots after this game in Tuscaloosa. I, I think you hit a key point. Like maybe that Auburn game last weekend is some sort of rallying cry for Missouri. We've been waiting for them all season to kind of get it together. They haven't been able to. Maybe last weekend, where their backs were firmly against the wall at home against a bad Auburn team, but they still found a way to win. Maybe they rally around Brady Cook and the fact that was almost out for the game, somehow came back in a crazy situation. That's probably the biggest thing in favor of Missouri in this game. Their defense actually has been good. Like their numbers, they're top 35 in both rushing and passing defense. They get to the quarterback at a decent clip. They haven't necessarily faced a juggernaut of an offense yet, but those numbers are still pretty high despite the Texas A&M game where they got clobbered. So does that defense hold serve against an Alabama offense that's been struggling? I want to see Alabama run the football. We've been waiting for them to do it. They haven't really done it all season. They're 75th in rushing. And can Jalen Milroe get it together? I mean, that first half of that Auburn game, he looked like the best quarterback in college football, going to be a first round pick. Since then, he's been, he's been pretty poor. 2 picks in his last 2 games, 6 interceptions to 5 touchdowns in his last 4 games, and his rushing numbers have been way down in the last 3 games. He hasn't looked like himself. When he's good, he's one of the best. When he's bad, he's borderline benchable. We saw it last season. I think he's hopefully going to get it going in this game. Have a good feeling at home. Coming off, a tough loss in a rivalry game. They got LSU, but then in a couple of weeks, but they have a bye week before that. Missouri's going to come out firing in this game. They're going to have a chip on their shoulder because a lot of people are writing them off in this one, writing them off like for the season. No one's talking about Missouri, but they only have 1 loss. They very well could work themselves back into this SEC CFP picture. So I like Missouri with the points. I'm going to take the points plus 13.5. And I think Alabama nicks it late, wins by a field goal or something. But I think Missouri is going to be able to hang around in this one.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good game, but I just don't think I can pick against Bama right now.
Notre Dame and Missouri. Notre Dame and Navy. This is a game we've had circled for a few weeks. Notre Dame is favored by 12.5. The total sits at 52.5. This one's high noon on ABC. ABC's got the first 3 games we've talked about are on ABC. So they've got a good slate of football this weekend. This one's at MetLife in New Jersey. Navy, one of the stories of the season. They're in the top 25 for the second straight week. They're coming off a big win against Charlotte. They've really dominated every team they've played so far this season. Now, the biggest kind of knock against Navy is like, okay, yeah, they're undefeated. They've been blowing teams out, but who have they played? Their best win is undoubtedly Memphis at home in week 3, where they gave up 44 points in that game. They scored 56, but they gave up a lot. This is by far the toughest test they've had so far. And Notre Dame, they're going to come in. They're not going to be overlooking Navy. It's not like they have a look ahead spot here. They don't really have any big games on their schedule the rest of the way. So they're going to be fully focused on Navy. It's a tough spot to prep. It's always tough to prep for Army, Navy, these triple option teams. Where are you feeling on this game? Or what are you feeling for this game? And do you think Navy can pull it off here?
I want them to. America's team versus what Notre Dame alum think is America's team and Notre Dame. But I think it's going to be fun. It's at MetLife, which I think bodes well for Navy, man, not having to go to South Bend. More of a neutral site. And anybody that's just a fan of football is going to be rooting for Navy in that triple option there. It's a good ball club. They're putting up so many points for a program that you don't expect that from. They're solid. But like you said, they haven't played anybody besides Memphis, who's a quality team in that AAC race for the title there. But Notre Dame's a level above, and they got woken up against Northern Illinois, and they've looked different since then. They haven't been playing with their food or their opponents. They've been dominating. And as much as I want it for Navy, I think it'll be close and it'll be competitive. I like them on the spread. I just have a hard time right now picking them to win. If they win this, though, I'm picking them every game the rest of the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's kind of going to have to be the same recipe for an upset as any major underdog has. They're going to have to control the clock, especially with that triple option. They absolutely can just bleed the clock out. Play a slow game. If they get ahead, that's key. You got to make Notre Dame throw the football. That's not their MO. Riley Leonard has not gotten better at passing the ball this season. They look to run. They're a run-first team. Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, and Riley Leonard, all 3 of those guys are really good runners. Like you said, they're kind of getting better every week. They have the 12th best rushing attack Notre Dame does in the country, only 100th in passing. Defensively, Notre Dame's defense is legit 11th in passing defense. They did lose that star corner a couple weeks ago, 27th in rushing. You know the story with Navy. They're going to run the damn football. They run 78% of the time, which is second most in FBS. They have the 3rd most rushing yards per game and the 8th most rushes per game. They don't pass, 121st in passing yards per game. They only throw it 12 times per game. Like, they're going to have to somehow get some push against this Notre Dame front that, this Notre Dame defense we stopped talking about them after the NIU game, but it's still an elite defense that played well in the game that they lost. Navy's defense is kind of Swiss cheese. They're 94th in rushing, 71st in passing. I think all the signs point to Notre Dame in this game. So I'm going to take Notre Dame minus 12.5. I think they win by 2, maybe even 3 touchdowns. I think they get ahead. Maybe take the ball first, go down and score. Navy's going to have to. They're going to struggle playing from behind. So that's really the most important thing for me. Is Navy has to play with the lead in this game and bleed the clock. But I'm going with Notre Dame minus 12.5. I just feel like they're bigger, faster, stronger, the better team here, and it's kind of a bridge too far with Navy. I obviously want, like you, I want Navy to win this game. That would be absolutely incredible. But I think the Cinderella undefeated season kind of ends here. Doesn't mean they're out of the CFP, by the way, because they can still win the American, and their only loss being to Notre Dame. They'd be in, or they'd have a chance. But I'm going with Notre Dame here.
Yeah, I mean, if they can get going and have the ball and control the clock, time of possession, wear them down, long drives, confuse them somehow a little bit with the triple option, that's their chance to not let Notre Dame get into a rhythm. And can they make a big play? Can that defense step up, make a timely interception, force a fumble, something like that to spring it in their favor? Because they're outmatched talent-wise. That's just how it's going to be against these Power 4 or Notre Dame. So obviously want them, but going to take the Fighting Irish in this one.
Let's bring it back to the SEC quickly. We got an interesting one. Texas is going to I keep saying the wrong team. Texas is going to Vanderbilt. Texas is favored by 18.5. Obviously coming off that tough loss at home against Georgia. Vanderbilt coming off a kind of a weird win against Ball State where they needed 10 late fourth quarter points to pick up the win. This one's 4:15 Eastern on SEC Network. Interestingly enough, the Vanderbilt-Alabama upset win was on SEC Network as well. I mean, can Vanderbilt keep that momentum going against Texas? They're ranked for the first time since 2013. Does all of the pre-snap motion that they do confuse this Texas front? Does, Diego Pavia make the plays? Do they get the lucky kind of interceptions that, they had one against Milroe in Alabama? Does the recipe come together here for Vanderbilt again at home against Texas? Texas is, at this point, I think we can say leaps and bounds better than Alabama. So I think this is, in terms of actually winning the game, I don't think Vanderbilt really has a chance here. Texas is going to be angry after that Georgia loss. They're not going to be overlooking Vanderbilt the way Alabama might have. And I think they're just a much better team here. Defense is still really good. Quinn Ewers, weird story with him earlier in the week about
what's up with that?
The 247 thing, saying how he might opt out for the draft, and then they quickly crushed that and saying it was false information.
Why would they? That's a pretty reliable place to be putting information, though.
Pretty weird. I think that would have been a bad look for Ewers and his draft stock, honestly, if he just gave up on the season.
It'd be really bizarre. Yeah.
So no truth to that, but according to Ewers in Texas. So he's going to be starting here. I think Texas wins by 3 touchdowns.
I think Vandy can they have some sort of magic. Pavia has magic in big games, so it's hard to come off the Ball State game where they didn't play well, but there's something about them at home against a big opponent. It seems like there's some magic. I'm not going to take them to win it. I think Texas is leaps and bounds better than Bama, where Vandy sprung that upset. And like I said about Notre Dame losing to NIU and getting woken up, I feel like that's Texas. They faced their biggest test potentially of the entire season, and it didn't go their way. But by no means did they play poorly, especially in the second half to make it close. They're, the final score, they were forced to go for it on a lot of fourth downs, which left points on the board there. I don't think they're going to do that against Vandy. I think they're going to find a way to win this one. Sark's going to have them ready to roll. I think Quinn's going to have a good game, and ultimately the talent's going to win out here. It'll be close. I think Vandy can somehow make this a cover here, maybe lose by 2 touchdowns and a field goal. But not enough magic to be tearing down the goalpost again.
I'll be curious to see what the crowd looks like. I mean, we saw it with Bama.
Yeah.
It was all Bama fans. Texas is, they travel really well. They got a lot of alumni pretty much everywhere. But now Vandy's got some hype, so maybe they have a good home field advantage. But yeah, we're both rolling with Texas. I got them covering. You got Vandy covering. Another potential upset. I mean, big spread here. Spoiler alert, I don't think it's going to happen. Illinois is going to Oregon. Oregon's favored by 21.5. This one's 3:30 Eastern on CBS. Technically a ranked showdown here. Top, number one team in the country. Illinois is 20 something. Illinois only has one loss, which was to Penn State in a game that they played pretty well in on the road at night. Oregon, they're coming off a trip to Purdue where they handled business. They held serve on the road. My upset alert meter is pretty low here. The only real kind of thing maybe working against Oregon here is just the weird travel going to Purdue and back, and maybe that works against them here, the whole time zone thing. But Illinois, they were actually outgained by Michigan last weekend. They only scored 21 points. Michigan's defense did a good job against Luke Altmaier. Their passing attack didn't really get much going, and they didn't run that well either. They actually ran a little bit better than I expected. But Oregon has an infinitely better offense than Michigan does. And if Oregon was playing in the same game Michigan was last weekend, they probably win by multiple scores. So I don't really see a path here for Illinois. I think they're 6-1. They've had a good season so far, but I don't think they're as good as their record indicates. So this is actually my lock of the week, or one of that I'm deciding between. I like Oregon minus 21.5. I think they win by a lot.
It's a lot of points, but there's no reason to believe the number one team in the country isn't going to cover the spread they're given. So until they don't, I think take them. I think you said Illinois is a little bit of fool's gold with that record at 6-1. Certainly good competitive football team, but we just saw how bad Nebraska lost to Indiana versus Illinois barely beat Nebraska. So I think that's the difference. They just can't put up the points that Oregon can. And it doesn't matter the defense they're playing, they're going to find a way. So I think the Ducks win. They win big.
Yeah, Oregon's offenses, they're playing a different sport than Michigan. And their wide receivers are so athletic, and they can run the football too. And that's a weakness of this Illinois defense. So, yeah, I don't see an upset here. But, hey, I mean, you never know with college football. We got a fun one on Friday night in the G5 world. Probably the game of the season, honestly, on the G5 level. Boise State, they're favored by 3.5. They're traveling to UNLV, 10:30 Eastern, late kick, CBS Sports Network. 65.5 is the total in this game. There's been a lot of talk about Ashton Ginty, the running back for Boise State, and his Heisman campaign. He's clearly the front runner right now with Travis Hunter's injuries of late. But there hasn't been a lot of talk of Boise's subpar defense. They're 83rd in points per game allowed, 90th in yards per game allowed, 11th in rush defense. So good job running with the run defense, but 131st in passing yards per game allowed. Conversely, UNLV doesn't really throw the football that well. They're 114th in passing yards per game. Their MO is running. As well, 13th in rushing yards per game, 12th in points per game allowed. It's a lot of stats, but basically UNLV, they look to run the football. That's the strength of the Boise State defense. UNLV does not pass, which is the weakness of the Boise State defense. Boise, we know they love to run, and UNLV actually has a good run front. They're 25th in rushing yards per game, and they struggle against the pass. So what tendency is going to be broken here? Does Boise pass? Does UNLV pass? Or is it just a run show? Ashton Ginty, Malik Williams, the quarterback for UNLV. I'm very fascinated about this game. Ashton Ginty, he's must see TV. So I'm going to go Boise State money line. I don't know if they cover. I think it's going to be a close one. We'll see if I stay up for this whole thing. It's going to be a late one. I might watch the rest of it on Saturday morning, but I'm going with Boise State -3 here.
It's going to be close. It's going to be fun. Like you said, both want to run the ball. They want to control that line of scrimmage. I think it's going to come down to which quarterback. Malik Williams, we've seen him a little bit more. Maddox Madsen hasn't had to do as much with, just handing the ball off to Ashton a lot of the time. Or one loss being to Oregon in a close one. Who can make a big play? on a play action with the running game established, who can show up, or does somebody make a bad play and throw a pick or have a backbreaking, interception? That's what I'm looking at. I'm gonna go with Boise State. I think Ashton Genty has that Heisman power. This would be a Heisman moment, biggest Mountain West game of the season for them. So can he will his team to a victory when everybody knows they want to run the football?
There's a very good chance these teams play again in the Mountain West Championship game too, by the way. So this might not be the only time we see them play. Boise State, I mean, if you look at just losses and you're grading losses or ranking them, like, and I don't like doing that, but they have the best loss in the country. Their only loss is on the road to the number one team in the country where they
Close
lost on a
too.
game winning field goal. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a great game. They very well could have won that game. I don't know if Oregon's the best team in the country, but they are ranked number one right now. UNLV, they lost to Syracuse, which Syracuse is, they're fine. They're not Oregon. So we're both on Boise here. I'm really excited for that one. Hopefully, I'm able to stay up. It's a late kick. All right, let's go through some of these a little bit quicker, but still, there's a lot of good matchups that we want to talk about this weekend. Talked about this one at the top, or mentioned it. Penn State favored by 6.5. They're going to Wisconsin. Night game, 7:30 p.m. on NBC. Penn State, they're coming off a bye week. Before that, they had an overtime win on the road against USC. Meanwhile, Wisconsin, they started out 2-2, lost Tyler Van Dyke in the Alabama game, but they've been playing much better football since the USC game. Really since the second half of the USC game. They killed Purdue, they killed Rutgers, and they took care of business against Northwestern last weekend. So they're on the up. This is a tough Penn State team. The offense might not be incredible. Tyler Warren is incredible on offense. This is going to be a tough defense for Wisconsin to go up against, Braden Locke to go up against. It might be a bridge too far for Wisconsin. This kind of reminds me of the Ohio State-Wisconsin game last year. Not that Penn State's at that level, but there was a lot of like upset buzz in that one. I don't see it for Penn State. I'm going with Penn State minus 6.5. I think they win by 10-14, maybe even more if they game plan well and really get that running game going. And they're probably like whatever the over under is for Braden Locke interceptions, I'd probably take the over in this game. I think he might struggle against this pretty good Penn State defense.
It's a good defense, and they're going to force him into bad plays. But I think Wisconsin's finding something. They're going back a little bit to the running game. They've obviously every year they find a new running back that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
5-2, they've gotten going a little bit against weaker competition the past couple of weeks. 6.5. It's one of those things. It's either can Wisconsin keep this close and make some magic at Camp Randall on a night game on Saturday night, or does Penn State just run away with this? So they finally find it and just unleash Aller and he just goes off. I'm not taking them, but Wisconsin has a frisky upset here. I don't mind it. I think there's a recipe to win here, and it's kind of the belief in Fickle too. Like Fickle had such high
Mm-hmm.
expectations here, and they've fallen short. And it's like, where did that go with Cincy building them to a contender in a playoff foe? Does he find it mid-season here and knock off Penn State? And it's like, hey, look at Scotty the rest of the way. They're a dark horse. Ultimately, not going to take him. I'm going to take Penn State, but I think there's a chance of some fun magic at Camp Randall Saturday night.
I do like Luke Fickell in that job. He's absolutely improved Wisconsin from where they were even last year. They're a much better team year over year. And it is certainly a tough spot for Penn State. They have Ohio State next weekend, so it's a look ahead for them. Meanwhile, Wisconsin, they go to Iowa the weekend after that, which is a rivalry game too. So it's a little bit of a look ahead for Wisconsin as well. I don't think they're going to be overlooking Penn State though. I think Penn State is more likely to overlook Wisconsin than Wisconsin overlooking Penn State. But I'm going on Penn State. Where are you going on the line? Where do you land?
I'm gonna take them to cover because I think they're gonna win. I think if they win, you get them at 6.5. I think they do win by a touchdown.
Okay. Elsewhere in the Big Ten, we don't have to spend too much time talking about this one, but it is kind of the toilet bowl. Michigan State. Michigan favored by 7. This thing opened up Michigan's favored by 4. This thing opened up as Michigan a 7-point favorite. The total is 40.5. Dear Lord. Iowa or Michigan State coming off a win against Iowa. Michigan coming off a loss to Illinois. 7:30 Eastern on Big Ten Network. Jack Tuttle or Shoremore has not committed to a quarterback, but it seems like he's leaning to be Jack Tuttle. Will Johnson's questionable in this one. I don't know if he's going to play for Michigan again, unfortunately. Michigan did pick up a 5-star offensive tackle this week, so that's a nice plus. And there's Bryce Underwood rumors. I don't think it happens, but that would be absolutely incredible. I have no reason to pick Michigan. The offense, if they go down by 7, like they're screwed. I think Aiden Childs, if he doesn't turn the ball over, is really good. The Michigan State, as of now, is a better coached football team, and they always play their best against Michigan. Jonathan Smith gives me major Mark D'Antonio vibes, which scares me. So I'm going to pick Michigan State. I have no reason to pick Michigan. They have not shown me anything so far this season that they can beat Michigan State at home.
Wow. Who's the 4th quarterback of Michigan's depth chart? Who's the freshman?
Jaden Davis. He's not going to play.
Is there any? I mean, the other 3 have been that bad that I'm like, do you play him?
I know they've been that bad. I don't think so. I mean, there were some clips of him throwing on the sideline, and his throwing motion it's pretty rough. He's got a major hitch in his throwing motion. I don't think you can throw him in night game, rivalry game. I don't think you could throw him in for his first reps for this one. Maybe against Northwestern later in the year, but not this one.
They're at home. They're at home, man. This is a rivalry game. They got all the talent in the world. Can they just get the ball to Loveland? Can Tuttle just throw him the ball and
not turn it over? No dumb fumbles, no dumb picks. Like, hold on to the football.
Don't make any plays. This defense is good. Aiden Childs is turnover prone, in my opinion. This Michigan State team is good, though. They're going to be well coached by Jonathan Smith. I think I'm going to take Michigan, though, man. Like, at home, I don't like the line, but at home, just do something. Get the offense going. Run the ball. Play good defense. Hopefully, Will Johnson give it a go. They got Mason Graham up there clogging the run, and just get the ball to Loveland, man. I think they can find a way.
Hopefully, they can run the football. I mean, Yankees Dodgers is going to be going on simultaneously. I'll tell you, that one's definitely going to have the big TV, and Michigan's going to have the smaller TV for this one. They've been relegated to the small TV at this point. SMU, they're going to Duke, 8 p.m. on ACC Network. SMU's only favored by 11.5. It's a rat line. SMU has been one of the best teams in the ACC since Kevin Jennings took over. And now the BYU loss doesn't look as bad as it did when it happened. So quick pick here, but I'm going SMU minus the points. I think they handled Duke. Duke's, they're what, 6-1, something like that. It's a phony record. They're kind of like Illinois, but poor man's Illinois. I think SMU rolls here. And man, I really like SMU's chances in that conference.
I mean, I'm taking them to cover this one. Duke is fool's gold with their record. They've won games, but they haven't won them big. And SMU can put up points with Kevin Jennings. We were both proven wrong on that pick. So give me the ponies and give me them big here.
Couple Big Ten ones here. Nebraska going to Ohio State. Ohio State's favored by 25.5. This one's noon on Fox. Just a key injury note here to kind of file away. Maybe not this week, but for some of the bigger games, Penn State in a couple weekends. Ohio State, their star left tackle, Josh Simmons, he's out for the season with a knee injury. It's a big loss for Ohio State. Now, of course, they have talent to fill the gap. You know, probably another 4-star or 5-star. But if you had to circle one weakness for Ohio State heading into the season, it was that offensive line, and that's a tough loss for them. That being said, Ohio State is going to destroy Nebraska. If Indiana beat Nebraska by, 49 points, what is Ohio State going to do to them? Coming off a bye week, no less. Give me Ohio State huge. It makes me a little nervous that the line is only 25.5, and maybe Nebraska can somehow, some way cover, but I'm gonna. My official pick is Ohio State big.
This is at Ohio State, right?
Yeah.
It ain't gonna be pretty. It ain't gonna be pretty. I think they've been waiting to get back on the football field here.
Yeah.
Whatever Indiana did in Nebraska, Ohio State's gonna look to do the same thing but worse. So I don't know. It ain't gonna be fun for the Cornhuskers. As much as I wanted them to be competitive in this ball game, I don't see it happening really.
Um, yeah, Raiola threw 3 interceptions last weekend against Nebraska, and well, I mean, now he's going on the road as a true freshman against one of the better defenses in the country. You remember last year, Nebraska, they they picked up their 5th win in late October against Purdue, and then they lost 4 straight to miss a bowl game. I don't want to say it's going to happen for them this year again, but they picked up their 5th win the first weekend of October against Rutgers, 14-7. Are they going to be like, that Anthony Edwards video where he's like, he's got the Gatorade and he's like the orange Gatorade. He's like trying to drink it, but he never drinks it. He's like kind of like, I don't know what the phrase is, but he's not drinking it. He's flirting with it, but he's not going for it.
There's a great this draft a side note, Anthony Edwards AE2 shoe video, and it's hilarious. His marketing is awesome.
Did you see him and Justin Jefferson? They
Yep.
redid the Sports Illustrated,
Yeah,
and they had
that's
like
sick.
funny video. Yeah, he's like, he said, "Man, I don't lift like you guys. If I lifted like you guys, I'd be, he's whatever 6'4", 6'5". I'd be 250 middle linebacker." I love him, man. He's the best.
He's funny.
But is Nebraska going to get to that 5th win and then just not get to the 6th? It's Ohio State this weekend, so that's probably a loss. And then UCLA at home. That's the one that they have to win to get their 6th win. If they lose to UCLA, it's USC on the road, Wisconsin at home, and at Iowa. I don't think any of those 3 to wrap up the season are guaranteed wins. So they got to take care of business against UCLA next weekend. Otherwise, they might pick up that 5th win and then fail to make a bowl again. That'd be tough.
Boy, that would be tough. That'd be real tough.
Elsewhere in the Big Ten, we got Washington. This is the College Game Day game. Washington going. It is. Washington's going to Bloomington. They're favored by 6.5. The Hoosiers are. It's high noon on Big Ten Network. The keynote here, of course, is Curtis Rourke. He is not playing, the Indiana quarterback. He got surgery on his thumb and is expected to be back for the Michigan State game, which is not this weekend, but next. It's going to be Taven Jackson for Indiana, who actually looked pretty good against Nebraska last week, and I think he had 2 touchdowns in that game. Washington, they're coming off a bye week. I think they might have the offense to hang with the Hoosiers. It might be the best offense that Indiana's faced this season. I mean, it's Nebraska, Northwestern, Maryland, Charlotte, UCLA, Western Illinois, and FIU. Washington's probably the best on that list. Will Rogers has been good this year, holds onto the football, doesn't turn it over. It's a backup quarterback for Indiana. There's so much hype around this program right now. Again, another big national TV audience going to be watching this game. And just like all the attention in Bloomington this weekend with game day there and everything, all the extra interviews they have to do for that. Meanwhile, Washington, like I said, they're coming off a bye week. They did get destroyed by Iowa the week before, but it's a weird travel spot in that game. This is a weird travel spot for them again too. But I took Indiana at 5.5 when this game opened. It's moved to like 6.5, 7 now. I think Indiana wins. Taven Jackson is still a good quarterback. So give me the Hoosiers, but I don't want to say Washington doesn't have a chance because I do think they might surprise here. It's kind of a letdown, weird spot for Indiana. A lot of distractions, I think, for them.
It's an interesting game. It's a lot to handle for sure. It's pretty much the best season they've had, definitely in our lifetime, but even decades beyond that. So it's really uncharted waters for them. So game day is coming, a lot of hype. It's that letdown spot as you lose sight and focus on the game plan and what's ahead of you as they look towards, we could go undefeated, we could go 11-1. Hey, don't forget about Washington. They're solid, they're competitive. Will Rogers is a good veteran quarterback. He's not going to make a lot of mistakes. I think the game plan is, hey, Taven Jackson, be smart. Let's run the football. Let's have a conservative game plan. Let's not try to beat them by 35. Let's not try to beat the brakes off like we did in Nebraska. Let's be smart, get it to your playmakers, get them out in space, use your legs. And defense played so well against Nebraska. Can they do that again? Probably give up a little bit more with Will Rogers being an older quarterback. So I think it's going to be close, but I do love this line under a touchdown, man. I love the Hoosiers to cover it still. I get it's a backup quarterback, but he's solid, and they've got a great football team around him beyond the quarterback position.
And he's experienced. He played a little bit last season. It's not like a true freshman coming in for Rourke. Now, I mean, Rourke's been one of the better quarterbacks in the country, so it is a tough loss for them. But yeah, we're both going with the Hoosiers. ACC Thursday night, Syracuse going to Pitt. It's actually a sneaky, huge ACC game. Pitt is favored by 6 here. Pitt's 6-0, undefeated in conference. Syracuse only has 1 loss, which came against Stanford a while back at home. Pitt, high-flying offense. Eli Holstein. Kyle McCord is the quarterback at Syracuse. LaQuint Allen, the running back, I really like. But I think Syracuse is kind of one of those fool's gold teams. I can't say that. Fool's gold. There you go. Fool's gold teams. They barely beat NC State a couple weeks ago. Struggled against UNLV. UNLV is good though. Lost to Stanford. Barely beat Georgia Tech. I think Pitt, they make the plays. They're really well coached. It's a year 1 coach for Syracuse in Fran Brown. So give me Pittsburgh on Thursday night to cover and win.
I want to take Syracuse. I want to take Kyle McCord. They're on my list of a potential upset of the week, but Pitt's undefeated, and there's something about just giving folks props, giving them their flowers where it's due. And hey, until they go down, until they play a Clemson or Miami, why can't they be the 3rd best team in the ACC? So I'm going to hold off on going on the Hughes upset pick and just give me the Pitt Panthers. And what a season for Pat Narduzzi, man. He was on the hot seat after last year. I mean, talk about it. If they're undefeated after this one, they got a real shot at the ACC crown then.
Mega matchup next weekend in the ACC that no one's talking about. Pitt and SMU.
Yeah, huge.
That's huge. I mean, that's the battle for, that one team that's going to be lurking behind Miami and Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
So we're both going with Pitt in this one. Georgia Tech, Vatek favored by 10.5. Haynes King is TBD in this one. He's been injured, didn't play against Notre Dame last weekend. Vatek big here. Vatek big. I think they're turning things on. People wrote them off earlier in the season, but they only have 1 conference loss. They're a team to watch in the second half of the season, I think. So I'm going with Vatek to cover here.
Let me do a live Haynes King update. Like, it's not a season-ending injury, but the fact that was even expressed does not sound good. I feel like he's not gonna go. If he ends up going, boy, if you could get him at 10.5, dude, I would. If Haynes gives it a go, I would take them, but I don't think he's gonna go, so I'm not gonna take him. I'm gonna go with the safe pick and give me Vatek to right the ship here.
Fun one in the American. Tulane is going to North Texas. Tulane is favored by 7.5. This is my upset of the week. North Texas has one of the best offenses in the country. Tulane is really good. Don't get me wrong, but North Texas, man, they can put up points. They can't stop anybody. We saw that last weekend against Memphis. They played in a shootout. Tulane did look great against Rice last weekend. Rice is really bad. They only won that game by 2 touchdowns. But I still think Tulane is one of the better teams in the G5. They do have 2 losses. Should have beat Kansas State. That Oklahoma loss doesn't look good now. But I don't know, it's just a tough spot for Tulane. So I'm going with North Texas as my upset of the week with that high-flying offense this weekend.
Chandler Morris, dude. We've talked about it a couple times, but Chandler Morris is good. They put up a lot of points here. It's going to be a shootout. If their offense can get ahead in this one, I like that pick. I'm going to take Tulane, just a safe bet here, and take them to win with the Green Wave. I think they're really good. Their losses are to Power 5 programs, but I don't hate the pick. Like, North Texas is in all their games, and they just played, I think, Memphis in just an absolute shootout a week or 2 ago.
Yeah, crazy game. Rutgers, USC. USC is favored by 14. 10 p.m. Eastern this one's 11 p.m. Eastern on Fox Friday night, right after Yankees Dodgers. USC, I think they get right here and they take care of Rutgers.
Yeah. I think Rutgers they do this. I feel like every year they go like 4-0 at the start of the season. Like, they front load it and then they just fall off a cliff.
Yeah. It's going to be tough for them to make a bowl. Oklahoma going to Ole Miss. Ole Miss favored by 20. We talked about Oklahoma moving on from their offensive coordinator at the top of the podcast. Ole Miss coming off a bye here. Give me Ole Miss minus whatever. Oklahoma's offense, I don't think they could score 2 touchdowns if you gave them 40 drives. They're just, it's not good. Arnold is starting though. Jackson Arnold got the starting job back.
So he won it. He won it back, or did?
I don't know if he necessarily won it back. It was just he got it back.
Yeah, I don't have much hope in OU right now, unfortunately.
Venables hot seat.
I don't think quite yet. His defense is actually playing fine, but they do have to get it figured out. I mean, it's not acceptable.
It's Oklahoma, man. It's one of the best programs in the country. No reason not to be good. North Carolina going to UVA. UVA favored by 4. Give me the Who's betting against North Carolina all year this year.
Yep, agreed. Love it for UVA.
These are all noon games. Arkansas going to Mississippi State. Arkansas only favored by 6.5. I actually like Mississippi State plus 6.5 here. Could be one of my upset picks, but I'll say Arkansas edges it, and they just pull this one out.
Yeah, I like Sam Pittman to keep him rolling, get to a bowl game, and save his job.
BYU-UCF. UCF favored by 1.5 in Orlando, 3:30 Eastern, ESPN. I'm going with UCF.
No,
They're favored. I think they win. I think BYU's magical run ends here.
No, it doesn't. No, don't give me this, dude. BYU is undefeated. And just like I said about Pitt, we got to give props. We got to give flowers to a team when they're undefeated this far in the season. We got to roll with them. We got to do it. Give me the Cougs, man. Give me the Cougs.
All right. I'd love to see it, but I think UCF runs it pretty well in that game. Your Ghosts, they're hosting Maryland. Maryland coming off a big win last weekend against SC. Minnesota coming off a bye. The Ghosts are favored by 4.5. 3:30 FS1. I like Maryland. I like Maryland in this game, but I think I'll pick Minnesota to win, but Maryland to cover.
Yes, give me the Ghosts, man. And I do not think this is going to be a pretty game. This is not going to be fun to watch. It's going to be weird. It's going to be funky. Ghosts want to be on the ground, but seeing them in person and that win against USC, they got a little something where they figured it out. They're not going to be beating Ohio State or anything, obviously, but give me them to knock off Maryland.
You guys played Ohio State this year? No. You got
Penn State, I think.
Penn State at home. Penn State at home. That would be a hell of an upset. Couple Big 12 games. Oklahoma State going to Baylor, 3:30 ESPN Plus. Baylor is favored by 7 points. Who would have thought that in the preseason? I think Baylor's actually turning things around, playing better football of late. Picked up a nice win last weekend against Texas Tech, where the offense looked really good. So give me Baylor to win. I don't know about cover, but I think Baylor beats Oklahoma State.
Yeah. Geez, Oklahoma State, the preseason darling and playoff pick by a lot of people for the Big 12. Give me Baylor. Dave Aranda's trying to save everything there. And I haven't seen anything from Oklahoma State that makes me think they're able to knock them off.
And then Texas Tech going to TCU. TCU's favored by 6.5. Tech got destroyed by Baylor at home last weekend. Their defense is just absolute Swiss cheese. And then TCU, they picked up a nice win late night against Utah last weekend. Give me TCU at home. I actually kind of like their offense. This should be a high scoring game. Total sits at 66.5. TCU in a shootout.
I want Tech. I wanted to take Tech, but their defense is just getting cooked by everybody. So I can't. I took them last week. They lost. Give me TCU.
Miami, Florida State. Miami favored by 21. Miami minus whatever in this game. I don't care that it's a rivalry game. Florida State stinks. This is in the running for my lock of the week. I think Miami destroys Florida State at home.
Sure ain't a rivalry game. I'm not sure it'll be a game at all. This one's going to be over from the jump, man. It's getting tough down in Tallahassee.
It'll be 1-7 on the season for them after this game. West Virginia, this is a weird Big 12 game. West Virginia going to Arizona. Arizona favored by 3. I have no idea who to pick.
That is going to look like a bowl game when that happens.
I have no idea who to pick in this game, but give me Arizona at home. Both teams are a mess this season.
What's the line?
Arizona's favored by 3.
What did I end up picking? Give me West Virginia. I want them. I think they're better than the record.
Okay. Utah at Houston. Utah only favored by 3.5. Houston in the basement of the Big 12. And both of these teams are bad. I mean, Utah relegated to ESPN Plus. I guess Utah.
As bad as their offense has been, their defense is great. And I don't think they'll lose to Houston. So give me Utah.
K-State, Kansas. Kansas is a 10-point dog. I'll take Kansas plus the points. Jalen Daniels looked better last weekend.
Yep.
K-State, they are kind of firing on all cylinders, though. But it is a rivalry game, Sunflower State showdown. But Kansas State wins. Kansas covers the plus 10, or maybe like a push.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'll be fun. It's a rivalry game. Jalen Daniels, if he can get that magic going, they can make it fun, make it competitive. But K-State is just better program, better ball club right now. So I would have thought preseason that Kansas would be in this one as a sleeper, but nah, K-State.
And then last Big 12 game, Cincinnati going to Colorado. Colorado favored by 5.5. Cincinnati's been playing really well. I mean, they're 5-2 this year. Their quarterback's pretty good, Brendan Sorsby. But Colorado, man, they're one of the most improved teams in the country this year. So give me the Buffs. Give me the Buffs to cover late night at home.
I think so too. Travis is going to play. Deion said he's better than he was last week going into the game, and he said that on today, so it's Tuesday. I like the Buffs, man. I think Cincinnati's good though. They're competitive. They're better than we thought they'd be. But this Colorado team is going to clinch a bowl game.
It'd be a big success for them. And then Auburn, Kentucky. Ooh, basement dweller SEC game. Kentucky favored by 2.5.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Kentucky, I guess.
Sure. I took Kentucky. Give me Kentucky. I don't know about that game. I ain't watching it though.
Yeah, I'm not watching that one either. UL Monroe at South Alabama. Only reason I bring this one up is because UL Monroe is 5-1, 3-0 in conference. South Alabama's favored by 7. Give me the Warhawks plus 7, baby.
They're on my list. They might be my pick. It might be the upset of the week. I don't know why they're 7-point dogs. I don't know why.
They're coming off a bye week too.
I don't know why they're 7-point dogs, man. They're getting no respect right now. So we're both on the Warhawks.
I love that team. Brian Vincent, man, he's going to get hired somewhere else this offseason, unfortunately. But they've had a 5-1. If they clinch a bowl game, be incredible.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's all we got. That is week 9 for you guys. You got anything else? Any final thoughts on this week of college football?
That's mainly it, but I was going to pull up. I had one more that I highlighted for upset of the week. It's in the Mountain West. It is San Jose State, Fresno State. I'm thinking about taking San Jose State as an underdog.
It's a good pick. I'm going with San Jose State in that game. They are a very under the radar G5 team this year. They've been playing really good football. They're 5-2, 3-1 in the Mountain West. Their only losses are to Washington State by 2 on the road and Colorado State by 7 on the road. So they've been good this year, man.
And they have Nick Nash, a senior wideout. This guy's been absolutely electric. He's got 72 catches, 900 yards, and 11 scores already.
Yeah, he's second in receiving in the country, about 83 yards behind Trey Harris of Ole Miss. I mean, he's going to get what year is he?
Senior.
He should get drafted.
Yeah. I mean, they feed him the ball, and everybody knows it's going to him. It's like Tyler Warren at Penn State. You just know he's getting the ball.
He's 6'3", 195. I mean, that's NFL body type. He's not like a super short receiver or anything. Why not? 11 touchdowns on the season. Yeah, I like them in that game too.
Only other note would be Army's on a bye, so they'll stay undefeated for one more week.
Yeah. Shout out to the oh my gosh, I'm blanking on their mascot. What's Army's mascot? The Knights?
Yeah.
Black Knights, right?
Black Knights.
Black Knights, yeah. All right.
Any
final thoughts?
One more.
Okay.
Friday night, Louisville, Boston College. It's -7.5 for the line. I love Louisville in this game, right?
Yeah. It's on the road, but BC's just kind of fallen off. And Louisville looked good last weekend against Miami. So, I mean, it could be a letdown spot for them. Their defense did get carved up in that game, but looks like rain's in the forecast. But Louisville, I think they win. I don't know if they cover, but I got them winning. What's your World Series pick, man? Yankees, Dodgers.
Yankees, Dodgers. Number 1 versus number 1. I know a lot of people aren't thrilled about it.
People just love to complain. I mean, what do you want? We had Diamondbacks, Rangers last year. Like, come on.
That's what you have to put anything aside and look at and go, hey, we have the number 1 seeds in both conferences, in both leagues, making it here. And you can't ask for bigger stars in the game. I mean, Juan Soto about to be a free agent. Giancarlo Stanton acting like the best player in the team. Aaron Judge, who you would have said is the key Bronx Bomber. And then you got Shohei Ohtani. You got Mookie Betts out there. Tommy Edman as the
Mm.
NLCS MVP. Like, there's a lot of storylines I like in this. It's gonna be fun. My ultimate goal is that I want it to go 7. And I think it does. I think it's gonna be a fun series. I want to see Marcus Stroman on the bump at some point
Ooh.
in the World Series. Is he on the roster? Have they released it?
Yeah, I think he'll be on the roster. I think the one that they've been looking at right now is Cortez to come back. He's been
Okay.
injured, but he might come back and be able to give them some bullpen innings. I don't know if Stroman would get a start, but maybe a relief outing.
I mean, you're probably rolling with the Yanks, right?
You got to listen to the baseball pod. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna. We'll drop this college football pod. We are recording it on Tuesday, but I'm gonna drop it Wednesday night, and then Luis and I Tuesday night are recording one that I'll drop right away. So by the time you're listening to this, that pod is out. My pick will be on that one. Let's just say I think it's going to be a very closely contested series.
That's my pick. My pick is just that it goes to 7. And the bullpens are going to be a huge factor.
Yeah. As always, bullpens. I mean, we'll see if anybody's able to get outs in this series. It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
All right, man. Really excited for that. Really excited for week 9 college football. Got some fun games, some fun matchups this weekend. Hopefully Michigan can retain the Paul Bunyan Trophy. I picked against it, but we will see. Any final parting words before we part this evening?
Hoping for some big wins for folks like Navy, Indiana. I think Michigan can pull it out. Ghosts need to stack a couple dubs here to get to a bowl game, but it's going to be fun. There's a lot of fun ones the rest of the way in the conferences.
Good slate. Excited for this weekend. Excited for the rest of the way. We will be back as always with our recap pod on Sunday. Until then, enjoy the football this weekend and peace out.